Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our webinar, How a Flexitarian Diet Could Work for You. Just a reminder, the information in this webinar is of general benefit to a majority of people, but everyone's health concerns are unique. Before you make any significant changes, please talk with your doctor or provider. My name is Summer Meyer, and I'm happy to be helping moderate the webinar today. I just want to remind you, we would love for your participation by voting in our polls, asking questions, and completing the survey at the end. It is my pleasure today to introduce to you our speaker, Jessy Richards. She is a registered dietitian and health educator at PeaceHealth's Weight Loss for Life clinic. Jessy instructs, inspires, and supports patients to achieve their health goals by leading group classes and providing individual support for weight loss. Jessy's passionate about helping her patients stretch their vegetable and fruit intake to the next level because the health benefits of these nutrient-dense foods go beyond the scale. The reward of seeing patients regain their functional abilities, come off their insulin and other medications, and gain a new confidence in their abilities to problem solve, living a healthy lifestyle, fuels Jessy to continue to share a message of health. Jessy received her Master of Science in Nutrition and Dietetics at Loma Linda University in Southern California, and also worked at Adventist Medical Center's Diabetes and Endocrine Center, providing individual and group diabetes instruction, where she gained her Certified Diabetes Educator certification. When Jessy is not at work, you can find her with her husband and 3 children, often outdoors, or concocting a new plant-based meal. Welcome, Jessy. Thank you for joining us today.
Hey, thank you, Summer. It's a pleasure to be here. So let's dive right into it. We have 3 sections that we'll be covering today. First off, what exactly is a flexitarian diet? That's one I hear a lot. During this section, we'll break down a flexitarian diet, we'll break it down, and we'll talk about why people are doing it. Next, does a flexitarian diet work? This is where we'll review some of the research and publications and also talk about the limitations of a flexitarian diet. And finally, how do I get started? We'll get practical so that you can leave this space with your next steps in mind. All right, Summer, next slide, please. Let's start with the basics. What is a flexitarian diet? The word flexitarian is actually a combination of 2 words, flexible and vegetarian. It means a diet generally including more plants and less animal products. Merriam-Webster defines a flexitarian as one whose normally meatless diet occasionally includes meat or fish, and I would further clarify, occasionally including other animal products like dairy and eggs. Now let's take a look at the history of the flexitarian diet. Flexitarian is a relatively new word. It came into use in the late 1990s as people were desiring the health benefits of a plant-based diet, but without the strictness of a vegan or vegetarian title. For me personally, I used to say, I'm mostly vegan, except for a few fish tacos, occasionally some cheese, and the Thanksgiving turkey. But that's a mouthful, and it ends up a long explanation to the poor individual who asked me. Now, if somebody asks, the explanation is a little more tidy. I love the flexible element of this lifestyle. I am able to be more flexible at a friend's house. I'm able to partake of that Thanksgiving turkey, and I don't feel guilty going out and enjoying some sushi or fish tacos. Next step on our timeline. In 2008, the registered dietitian Dawn Jackson Blattner brought her book to the flexitarian table, called The Flexitarian Diet. This book has been largely responsible for the increasing popularity of this diet. From beginning to end, it is positive and practical. It helps people start wherever they are. And I love that it focuses on what to add instead of talking about subtracting anything. Lastly, Merriam-Webster finally added the word flexitarian to the dictionary in 2012. So at this point, we've defined the flexitarian diet as one that includes more plants, any plants, and then fewer animal products. But you may be wondering if there are more specific guidelines available. Let's go to the next slide. In her book, The Flexitarian Diet, Blattner notes that she received lots of comments and questions around what counts as a flexitarian diet. People would reach out to her and tell her what they were eating and ask, "So am I a flexitarian?" So she decided to further define flexitarian into 3 levels: beginner, advanced, and expert. Here's how she does it. There are 21 meals in a week. If you have anywhere between 1 to 7 meatless meals in a week, then you could be called a beginner. If you have 8 to 14 meatless meals, you could be considered advanced. And if you are eating 15 or more meatless meals, then you would be considered an expert. So this means that if you do only 1 meatless meal out of 21 meals in a week, then you can claim the flexitarian diet title if you would like, because this lifestyle is all about progress, not perfection. So let's move on to see how the flexitarian diet compares to other eating patterns. There are lots of diets out there, aren't there? The omnivore diet, meaning a mix of everything, low carb varieties such as ketogenic diet, then lots of very interesting fad diets popping up like weeds. Frankly, it's hard for me to keep up with all of them. And this is my job. Plant-based diets are another type. The flexitarian diet can be categorized as a plant-based diet. While I could have included an extensive list of plant-based diets, as there are dozens of varieties out there with small differences, I included a few of the most popular. Flexitarian, Mediterranean, vegan, vegetarian varieties like lacto-ovo, which include dairy and eggs, even a pescatarian, which includes some fish with plant foods, and then a whole foods plant-based diet. So what do all of these diets have in common? Each one of these centers around plants, such as vegetables, fruits, whole grains, starches, legumes, nuts, and seeds. Now let's look at why are people choosing a flexitarian diet. So why are people adopting a flexitarian diet? This poll was by the New York Post, and I think it gives a nice snapshot into why. In this poll, people were allowed to select more than one reason. Coming in at first place, 76% chose a flexitarian diet best manages their overall health. Next up, 51% chose weight management as a reason, and then animal welfare and environmental reasons had similar results, with 24 and 23% of participants citing these as reasons. So now I'd like to hear from you. Which dietary pattern do you identify with most? So we have omnivore, low carb or keto, pescatarian, vegan or vegetarian varieties, or another one. Go ahead and type it in the chat box and we'll give you a few minutes, a few seconds or to complete that poll.
All right, great. Responses are coming in. We'll just give it a couple more seconds here. Thank you everyone for your participation. I'm gonna count down in 5, 4, 3, 2, and we'll close the poll here. All right, let me share out these results.
All right, great. So we have kind of what I'd expect. We have most people eating an omnivore diet, a lot of people coming in with the low carb keto diet, pescatarian coming at third place, and then vegan or vegetarian, right afterward. And then I see the other ones, and I'm curious, lots of people following other diets. If we see those in the chat box, that would be interesting. But let's move on to another poll. I want to ask you guys another question. So why do you follow the dietary pattern you just selected? So we have a few options here. It's easy, it's what I know. It makes me feel healthier, or it helps me manage my weight. I think it's better for the planet, or I can't eat something that had a mom. So let me give you a few moments to make your selection.
All right, this is an awesome audience that we've got with us today. We're already at 77% voting, so I'll just leave this open for a couple more seconds here, see if we can hit that 100% participation rate.
Yeah, thank you guys for participating.
Yeah. We'll close it down in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Thank you. Let me share this out.
Okay, there we go. So it's easy, it's what I know. That tied right there along with it makes me feel healthier. And then we have it helps me manage my weight coming down there. And I think it's better for the planet with a few. That's great. Thanks so much for sharing that with me. Okay, so we've spent some time talking about what a flexitarian diet is and why are people doing it. But the big question, does it work? I'll take you on a tour with 5 stops of some great research and publications to give you a good idea of the type of benefits that can be achieved with a flexitarian diet. First stop on our tour, let's talk about the Blue Zone study. This began as a National Geographic expedition led by Dan Buettner. He set out to find the places with the highest concentration of people making it over 100 years of age. He wanted to discover what were their health secrets. What were these communities doing that enabled them to enjoy exceptional health to such an old age? Dan and his team of researchers found 5 places with exceptional longevity and called them the Blue Zones. People living in these zones were 10 times more likely to reach 100 than people living in the USA. 10 times more likely. That's enormous. So the Blue Zones are Sardinia, Okinawa, Loma Linda in Southern California, Nicoya, and Icaria. These people are enjoying exceptional health. The Nicoyans spend just 15% of what America does on healthcare and are more than twice as likely than Americans to reach a healthy age of 90 years. Icarians experience 20% less cancer, half the risk of heart disease, and almost no dementia. Those are amazing results. So what are these people doing to enjoy such wonderful health benefits and longevity? Let's move to the next slide. Blue Zones uncovered 9 evidence-based common denominators believed to slow the aging process. When you get a moment, I recommend that you read through all 9 of these in the study. It's a really easy read and it's fascinating. I'll just highlight the one that pertains to our flexitarian talk today. The study refers to it as the plant slant. I have it highlighted in blue there on your slide. So beans are the cornerstone of Blue Zone diets. They are used as the primary protein source. Beans, including fava, black, soy, and lentils, were especially called out as ones that were the cornerstone. Meat is eaten, but only on average around 5 times per month when you looked at all of these communities. The serving sizes are 3 to 4 ounces, which is just about the size of a deck of cards. I also want to note that there was commonality among these 5 groups, that the majority of their intakes were earlier in the day. So they were eating the majority of their calories early, right? That's a lot different than America. We eat a majority of our calories late, don't we? It could be said that they eat breakfast big like a king, lunch medium like a prince, and dinner small like a pauper. The Okinawans specifically were called out for paying attention to their fullness. They always, before each meal, they have this saying in Japanese that's something like, eat until you're 80% full. So they're really paying attention to their fullness level. Okay, so let's look at another study. Second stop, let me tell you about this study called Dietary Patterns and Disease Mortality. It was published in the Journal of Nutrition. So Reedy and his team of researchers got together with the largest prospective health study to evaluate if there was a connection between what people are eating and their risk of heart disease, cancer, and death from all causes. So let me tell you a little about the large health study Reedy partnered with. In 1995, the National Institutes of Health got together with the American Association of Retired Persons to start the largest in-depth prospective study looking at the relationship between diet, lifestyle, and cancer risk. This study is following over 424,600 participants over time to see what kind of connection there is between the foods they eat and their disease risk. Many studies have been published following this group of participants. So Reedy's team partnered with this health study, and they used 4 types of healthy diet scoring techniques to evaluate each participant's intake. So why did they use 4 different scoring techniques? This is because there are so many variations of healthy diets in research. They used the Healthy Eating Index and the Alternative Healthy Eating Index. These are 2 diet scoring tools that are based off of the US Dietary Guidelines for 2010. They used a DASH diet scoring tool, which can be used for persons with high blood pressure, and a Mediterranean diet scoring tool. And it is important to note that all of these diets do include animal products to some degree, but they are all built on a common core. That is, they are all built on fruit, vegetables, whole grains, starchy vegetables, nuts, seeds, and legumes. What were the results? It didn't matter which of the slightly different scoring tools were used. All scoring high on them enjoyed a lower risk from overall death, heart disease, and cancer. They closed the study by saying, we need to do a better job educating the public about these health benefits of diet patterns that are built on this common core. Again, this common core of fruit, vegetables, whole grains, starchy vegetables, nuts, seeds, and legumes, or simply put, plant foods. Okay, let's look at another study that echoes these results. Okay, third stop on our tour. Let's take a look at the PREDIMED study. The PREDIMED study came into being as researchers were concerned that a strict vegetarian diet might not be easily embraced by many individuals, but advocating that people consume more plant foods would be a more easily understood message. So, would people who consume would people who score higher by consuming more plants reduce all causes of death? They had over 7,200 participants, which they used food frequency questionnaires and had one-on-one time with a dietitian to evaluate their intake. To keep it simple, they used just one diet scoring tool, which was that they gave positive points for any plant food and negative points for all animal products. So let me be clear, they didn't get into the weeds of is it processed or unprocessed? Does it contain added sugar? Which are definitely things that it is good to think about, but they kept it really simple with positive points for any plants and negative points for any animal products. The results? People who scored higher, meaning that if they scored negative points with animal products, they consumed more plant foods to bring their score up. These people enjoyed a lower risk of death from all causes. In fact, it was specifically called out that omnivores who ate more plants, omnivores, people eating some meat, who scored higher with the plants, they especially saw an improvement in that group. So they enjoyed a lower risk of death from all causes. In fact, they had initially divided the scores into 5 groups, but in the highest group, the one that had the most plants, so few people died in the course of the study that they had to merge this group with the next one to it to gain enough statistical power to properly evaluate the study. So this study shows that shifting our focus to just adding more plants and doing this on our plates can reduce all causes of death. Let's look at a publication from Kaiser Permanente. Okay, so this is the 4th stop on our tour. You with me still? In the spring of 2013.
I'm still with you.
Awesome, thanks, Summer. Good to hear another voice other than just mine sometimes. So in the spring of 2013, Kaiser Permanente sent out a nutritional update to their physicians. They state, the concerns about the rising cost of healthcare are being voiced nationwide. Are you guys hearing these concerns? I know I have been hearing them. Our healthcare is getting too expensive to sustain, even as unhealthy lifestyles are contributing to the spread of obesity, diabetes, and cardiovascular disease. For these reasons, physicians are looking for cost-effective interventions to improve health outcomes. After reviewing and referencing a wide body of research, they identify that the healthy eating may be best achieved with a plant-based diet, which we define, this is how they define it, as a regimen that encourages whole plant-based foods and discourages meat, dairy, and eggs, as well as refined and processed foods. They go on to share evidence favoring a plant-based diet in the aid in treating high blood pressure, diabetes, heart disease, obesity, and a reduction in all causes of death combined. They concluded with the statement that the future of healthcare will involve an evolution toward a paradigm where the prevention and treatment of disease is centered not on another pill or procedure, but on another serving of fruits and vegetables. This publication will be included in the resources for this presentation today, and at the end of it, it includes dozens of citations for the best research demonstrating the effectiveness of a plant-based diet. And if that's something you are interested in studying further, I suggest you take a look at it. So let's move to our last stop. All right, last on my list. The U.S. News and World Report publishes a list of the best diets in January each year. They have a team of researchers grade each diet in 7 categories. 2 of the categories are how effective is it and how safe is it? And I would say that these 2 are the most important. So how did the Flexitarian diet do? For the best overall diet, it tied for 2nd place. For the best diabetes diet, it tied for 2nd place. For the easiest diet to follow, it also tied for 2nd place. Oh no, sorry, it took 2nd place that time. So incidentally, you might wonder which diet took 1st place in all 3 of these areas. So it was actually the Mediterranean diet. And if you remember from our previous slide, this is another plant-based diet. Okay, so summary. If we can move to the next slide. All right, we have just went through a lot of stuff and pretty fast. So let's summarize some of the benefits of a diet centered around plant foods from the previous slides. Improvements found in diabetes, high blood pressure, heart disease, many cancers, obesity, overall mortality. Is there something on this list that catches your attention? Something on here that you deal with? Or perhaps you have a family history with this and you are here to learn about how you can reduce your risk of developing it. When I look at this list, I see cardiovascular disease. It's been several years ago now, but I remember the day that I received the news that my lipid panel came back and the results did not look good. My total cholesterol was 285, and at that point, I would have said I was pretty healthy. Small amounts of lean meat, low-fat dairy, and I was exercising. I was baffled at receiving such a high level. I told my parents and found out I wasn't the only one in my family who struggles with high cholesterol levels. Well, I asked my doctor to give me a few months before starting medications. I should be able to do something to lower this with food. I mean, food's my thing, right? So I set out to do 3 months, pretty much entirely plant-based. I swapped out the chicken and fish for beans and nuts and seeds. I used almond milk and avocados instead of dairy. And at the end of the 3 months, my total cholesterol dropped to 180. That's 105 points in 3 months. I was very encouraged by this, and I have continued to eat a more plant-based diet than I used to, but I still occasionally enjoy some dairy or fish. But my cholesterol continued to drop, and the last time it was checked was 160. It's one thing to read about health benefits, right? But it's another thing to experience them. I want to encourage you. Working with patients, I have seen health benefits in all of these areas shown. What might your health story be with a flexitarian diet? Okay, so let's transition. While there are some oh, go ahead, Summer.
Jessy, I have a quick question from the audience before we go to that next slide.
Oh, perfect.
Jane is wondering how this compares to keto.
Oh, Jane, yes. When do I want to talk about that? We're gonna have to talk about that. Let me think.
It's coming up, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't officially talk about it in this, but I could take a moment to talk about keto now. So the ketogenic diet is very popular. We could take a lot of time talking about the ketogenic diet, but I'll just hit a few high points. So the ketogenic diet has received a lot of attention as people following it correctly usually lose a lot of weight quickly, right? It's super encouraging. You do it for a week and you see the scale drop. And when they do studies comparing weight loss of a ketogenic diet to other types of diets, ketogenic diet takes the cake, without any cake, I guess. You lose the most weight with a ketogenic diet. But what is happening? What is responsible for all of this weight loss? And this is where I caution people to really think about a ketogenic diet, because when they have when they've done research, putting people in metabolic wards where they take people and make sure that they get their intake correct, and they take their labs and they use different tools to evaluate their to assess their body, what they have found is the majority of weight loss comes from water and lean body mass, muscle being in this category. So why do people lose more lean body mass on a ketogenic diet? So without the body's preferred source of carbohydrate, the body dips into its lean body mass to convert into an energy source. So what happens when you lose lean body mass or muscle tissue? The more lean body muscle that you have, the higher your metabolism is going to be, and the less you have, the lower your metabolism will be. So some people follow a low carb diet, they enjoy wonderful results on the scale, but they finish the diet with a significantly lower metabolism than what they had before, and that does make regaining weight all too easy. My second point is you do burn more fat on a ketogenic diet. So there's but something that I think people should take into consideration when research takes into consideration the extra fat that you're taking in on a ketogenic diet, which is very high fat. When they look at that and they compare a ketogenic diet versus maybe a standard isocalorie diet, they see that the people who lose more fat is still the other diet, not the ketogenic diet, maybe like a normal carbohydrate containing diet. So what do I conclude with? I just say that You know, be thoughtful if you do a ketogenic diet. Be thoughtful that you want to do extra strength training to preserve your lean body mass. I have seen people do it successfully. I've seen people lose weight and then maintain it, but you do have to kind of work through some of those things. Does that help?
Yeah, that sounds great. And I think that your next slide kind of also goes in to start talking about any drawbacks to the flexitarian style. So, you know, for those listening in and maybe familiar with keto, I think you'll enjoy this next piece from Jessy.
Yeah, thank you, Summer. Okay, so the limitations of a flexitarian diet. So let's talk about the limitations and a couple perceived limitations to the flexitarian diet. So first, if you have renal disease, diabetes, or high blood pressure, please talk to your doctor before starting a flexitarian diet, especially one that is closer to entirely plant-based. So I have seen blood sugar levels tank after just one day of a strict vegetarian diet. So medications may need adjusting. Also, you may need a flexitarian diet to be personalized with additional guidelines for protein, carbohydrates, and other vitamins and minerals. So working with a dietitian may be appropriate. Second on my list, strict vegetarian diets require supplementation of B12. So you could take 250 micrograms of B12 daily. If you're not great at remembering things daily, you could actually take 2,500 micrograms of B12 on a weekly basis. So 250 micrograms daily or 2,500 micrograms of B12 weekly. Third on my list, some people have said that cost gets in the way of eating a more plant-based or flexitarian diet. So let's take a moment to review the cheap and expensive parts of a plant-based diet. So first, the cheapest protein items, lentils, beans, peas, and peanut butter. And then for vegetables and fruit, there are so many economical, fresh, frozen, and canned items. The expensive plant-based items can be nuts, seeds, and other types of nut butters, plant-based meat alternatives, pre-packaged veggies or fruits, berries, specialty fruits and veggies. In the end, I would argue that a plant-based diet can be the cheapest because the expensive part of any diet is typically the protein foods, and beans are the cheapest protein source available. But it also can be pretty expensive. Fourth, is a flexitarian diet too high in carbs? So this is where I'm kind of drawing it to the ketogenic question that we received. And many of you are following a ketogenic diet. And again, you've probably seen some good numbers on the scale and cholesterol decreases, because anytime you lose weight, your cholesterol decreases. So you might wonder, hey, a flexitarian diet, that's too high carb, isn't it? So I have many people sold on the benefits of a plant-based diet, but confused about the high carb items that it includes. This is an understandable question, because low carb diets have been popular for a while now. A plant-based diet is a moderate to high carb diet, as all plants contain carbohydrate. So why does a higher carb diet benefit people with diabetes? Doesn't that sound crazy? But as we previously discussed, the flexitarian diet took second place for the best diabetes diet in 2020. So this is because not all carbs are created equal, right? There are many health benefits to cutting down carbs like donuts, potato chips, and fancy frappuccinos. So in this way, I agree with my keto friends that we are reducing the donuts, the potato chips, the fancy frappuccinos, the added sugars, right? I appreciate that the keto diet can really help clean your closet out of these items. But the flexitarian diet health benefits come from whole food, complex carbs. These are totally different. These are beans, whole grains, potatoes, and fruit. These carbohydrate sources include fiber and resistant starches. So let's work to understand why fiber and resistant starches are so beneficial. Do you know what fiber and resistant starches are made of? So what do you think? protein, carbohydrate, or fat? Just take a moment in your mind. I have asked this question many times to people, and usually they pause and then they say, hey, it's a protein, right? And that's probably because we know fiber's good for us and we know protein's good for us, so it must be a protein. But it's not. It's actually a carbohydrate. In fact, it is made entirely of sugar. Now hold on for a moment and let me explain this. So fiber are chains of sugar. So because of their shape, our body cannot break them down. So it's a sugar form our body cannot break down. So the sugar stays locked away as we digest away at the rest of our meal. And where do you think that the fiber and resistant starch are going? So some people get embarrassed when I ask this question. People have answered, well, if I pause long enough, somebody will answer me. And they say, well, it's going down the toilet, isn't it? Yeah, that's true. But it's not the whole story of fiber and resistant starch. This form of sugar goes down our intestines to our colon, where it could be described as dropping out of heaven in the eyes of our gut bacteria. The sugar from the fiber feeds the beneficial bacteria of our colon. So did you know that there may be a war inside of your colon? Imagine that there are troops of good and bad gut bacteria. Consuming fiber and resistant starches can provide crucial resources to the good bacteria. So some people are taking probiotics, meaning they're taking good types of bacteria. But fiber is critical to feed those bacteria. And if you don't feed them, they're going to starve to death. So the beneficial bacteria are eating the sugar from the fiber and resistant starches. How does that help me? So the byproducts left over from the probiotics munching the fiber, they travel through the bloodstream and they can improve insulin sensitivity. So this improves blood sugar levels. They can reduce cholesterol synthesis, which can reduce the risk of heart disease and influence your level of satiety or fullness. So fiber and resistant starch is one reason diets high in plant food are so good for you. You can only find fiber in plants. Lastly, let's talk about something that happens when you eat more fiber than you are used to. So I have some people that have tried eating a flexitarian, oops, go back, Summer, please. So I have some people who have tried eating a more flexitarian or plant-based diet, and then they feel worse. Has this happened to you? They can feel bloated, other uncomfortable GI symptoms. So let's go back to the gut bacteria or probiotics to explain this. The average American isn't used to having very much fiber. Less than 15 grams per day is estimated. If you increase your fiber up to 40 or 60 grams quickly, this fiber can overwhelm the bacteria or probiotics that are trying to break them down. You may need to increase your fiber intake slowly over the course of a month so that your body can increase its production of the beneficial bacteria needed to break down the fiber. So if this happens to you, hang in there, take it slow, and consider if you want to add some Beano or Gas-X during this time. Okay, Summer, let's move to the next one. Okay, so now we're to our last section where we get practical. How do I start? Maybe you want to start sharing some of the benefits of eating more plants. So what does a flexitarian diet look like on your plate? So think more plants. Flexitarians love focusing on what to add instead of what to take away. I want to take you through 3 popular entrees and show you how to start making the shift toward more plants, and thus naturally there'll be less animal products there. But first, I'm going to address a few common questions you may be asked if you embrace some plant-based meals.
And Jessy, we do have one question from the audience. Bernie is asking, do the fruits and vegetables need to be organic?
You know, that is a very good question. So is it Bernie?
Mm-hmm.
All right, Bernie, I would say anytime you can afford organic, that would be wonderful. I know for some people it's a matter of cost, and I've talked to some people who they actually don't eat as many fruits and vegetables because they're concerned about the pesticides on them. But the cost of the organic is a problem for them also. So you can see the predicament that we can end up in. So the research I've looked at has said that eating the fruits and vegetables is so powerful that it even supersedes whether or not it's organic. So that being said, I still personally will peel items that I buy that aren't organic, and it has been shown to really reduce the pesticides on them. Or I'll try to buy some organic that you just can't peel. And that's sort of my strategy to get the benefits of fruits and vegetables. You don't want to compromise. You don't want to be like, oh, I'm not going to buy as much because I'm buying organic. You want to get a lot of them so you can really base your diet off them and be full and satisfied. So that's kind of where I fall on that question. Does that help you out, Bernie?
Thanks, Jessy. That makes sense.
All right. Thanks for your questions, guys. Okay, so now are we ready, Summer? Where do you get your protein? I put this here because if you embrace any type of plant-based diet, you will be asked this question. And I don't fault people who ask it because there is a lot of confusion out there. So here pictured is a gorilla who eats a plant-based diet and has no shortage of muscle. Where does he get his protein from? From plants, right? And we can get our protein from plants also. But you may wonder, how much do I need? Will I get what I need to be able to build healthy tissue and muscle? I mean, it's good for the gorilla, but I am not a gorilla. Let's move to the next slide. So here are several plant-based sources of protein. So how much, you might wonder, how much do you need per meal or per day? Of course, the nutritional needs for each individual vary, and they're going to depend on your activity level, your age, sex, your weight, and certain diseases require more or less protein. So generally, if you're more active and bigger, you may need more protein. If you're less active and smaller, you may need less protein. But for simplicity's sake, I'll use the 2,000 calorie guidelines, and I'll assume that between 50 and 90 grams per day would be appropriate for most individuals. So this could be about 15 to 25 grams of protein per meal and 5 to 10 grams per snack. So let's review the list. So beans are my favorite source of protein. 1 cup contains about 15 grams of protein for most types. They can be easy, just open up a can, dump them, rinse them out, dump them into a colander, rinse them out. Actually rinsing them, while it reduces sodium, most people know that, it also can help cut some of the gas-causing agents to get that liquid off of them. Then you can sprinkle them on your tacos, your salad to add some additional protein. Beans and lentils coincidentally have about the same amount of fiber per serving as protein. So that's an added health benefit since we were talking about fiber. Next up on my list is lentils. These come in at about 18 grams of protein per cup. I love a lentil soup in which I have no problem having upwards of 2 cups of lentils in a large bowl. Think how full you would feel after that meal. That's 36 grams of protein from just the lentils, and the starch is a wonderful slow-acting type that can keep you full for hours. Edamame may be something new for you. You might try it. 1 cup contains about 24 grams of protein. Grab a bag from the frozen section and boil them for about 15 minutes. Don't eat the pods. I've tried it. They are way too fibrous. You can't really swallow them. And I found out you're not supposed to eat them. So you can buy them frozen without the pods too. Also note the pasta choices at the bottom. White or wheat has the same protein, 7 grams per serving. Of course, it doesn't have the same fiber, but it has the same protein. Red lentil pasta tastes surprisingly similar to whole grain pasta if you haven't tried it yet. I get the brand Barilla, and it's made with only one ingredient, red lentils. And a serving provides 13 grams of protein. So here I want to take a moment to address a question that I get a lot. So do plant-based proteins need to be combined with others so that your body can build healthy tissue? There was a fad that became popular in the 70s that in order for a protein to be complete, it needed to be combined with another, such as beans and brown rice. You had to eat them together. It had to be combined in order to contain the essential amino acids in the exact same proportion as our muscle and other animal tissue. And if you didn't have the amino acids in the exact same ratio, then you wouldn't get the protein you need. But this was found to be unnecessary decades ago, and yet the myth can still be heard. Plant proteins do contain all essential amino acids, although they aren't in the exact ratio as our tissues. But our body can build the tissue together by taking from the available amino acids, and they put them into the right ratio. So there is no need to worry about combining various plant proteins at each meal, which was a huge relief to me. But as variety is the spice of life, I do still encourage you to eat a variety of plant protein foods, as you will gain a variety of benefits that each unique plant food contains. All right, that being said, now let's move to our 3 entrees. Okay, so now what does this flexitarian diet look like on your plate? Let's look at tacos. So tacos are easy to modify to your liking. They are an American favorite. They can be simple or gourmet. Do you have tacos for dinner? Think about your favorite toppings. A flexitarian is going to think to add a variety of plants. So for easy tacos, you might include shredded lettuce, tomatoes, and cilantro with black or pinto beans topped with guacamole and salsa. And to take these up a notch, add roasted butternut squash or Brussels sprouts. These tacos allow for flexible protein sources. If you are just starting out, you may include the usual ground beef, but you might require less of it with the addition of pinto beans. See how that works? For somebody looking to experiment with different vegetarian protein options other than beans, consider grilling tempeh, tofu, or vital gluten. And of course, there are tons of recipes online for this. This meal alone could include between 20 to 30 grams of protein, depending on serving sizes. So now let me take a moment to talk about the list of vegetables. So if you're looking at that list and you're thinking, I just don't like vegetables, I want to challenge you. Perhaps you just don't like vegetables yet. There are many ways to prepare vegetables, and perhaps you were raised where it didn't matter what the vegetable was, it was put into a pot with water and boiled to death. Have you tried the vegetables baked, steamed, or sauteed lightly with some olive oil? Have you tried adding vinegar, citrus zest, fresh herbs? There are so many ways to make vegetables, and I challenge you to try a new one this week. Okay, let's move on to our next entree. Okay, pasta. This is another very popular and flexible favorite. So many options. So let's start out with the noodle part. You can bump up the protein by choosing red lentil pasta, found in most grocery stores these days, or you could cut back the calories with baked spaghetti squash. If that sounds too adventurous though, just stick with your favorite pasta. And to keep it really simple, cook up the pasta, heat up some red spaghetti sauce, and add some garbanzo beans for additional protein. That's my favorite way to do it, and my kids actually love it. Add spinach to your sauce before heating it for some extra nutrition. To take it up a notch, add roasted zucchini and mushrooms or caramelized onions. And here's where the flexibility comes in. If you're sharing a table with family members, including some meat in their meal, you could include some in your plate. So using it more like a garnish, a serving of red lentil pasta with a half cup of garbanzo beans, which is really a small amount, that alone is 20 grams of protein. So let's move to our last entree. Lastly, we have salads or veggie bowls. These are all too easy to flex up into a plant-based meal. So for an easy salad, start with your greens and lettuce, add whichever veggies you'd like, a half cup of black beans, quarter cup cashews, and top with your favorite vinaigrette dressing. To take it up a notch, add roasted butternut squash or avocado. And to boost the protein up, add a half cup of shelled edamame. And this meal here would contain between 25 and 30 grams of protein. So for an easy veggie bowl, start out with beans and rice, whichever ones you'd like. Add some fresh spinach and tomatoes, and top it with cilantro and salsa. And to take it up a notch, you could add roasted sweet potato, sliced avocado, and I like to get Cafe Yum sauce from our Vancouver location. They sell it in bottles, or there are many recipes available online for the Cafe Yum sauce. It is a super yummy addition to these bowls. This meal would provide about 20 to 30 grams of protein, depending on serving sizes. So let me conclude this presentation with a question. What will you flex first? Whether it's soup, burgers, creamy pasta, a stir fry, or one of your favorites, they can all be flexed to include more plant-based options so that you can start enjoying the health benefits that come with a diet centered around vegetables, fruits, whole grains, nuts, seeds, and legumes. Thank you so much for joining me today. It has truly been a privilege to share with you. Now let's turn things back to Summer.
Thank you so much, Jessy. We do have another question. This one is from Al, and he is asking, does a flexitarian diet include the practice of intermittent fasting?
Oh, that's such a great question. Thank you, Al. I see no reason why you can't merge the two together if you would like. But I would say intermittent fasting has some really good points. I really appreciate that it's trying to give us more of a break between our meals, especially overnight, where we have a good break while we're sleeping from food. Why do we do that? We do that so our body gets a chance to burn a little more fat. So that's an awesome thing for trying to lose weight. With the intermittent fasting, though, the only spot where I would want to modify it personally to a more blue zone friendly approach is I would recommend shifting when you eat. With intermittent fasting, the eating portion of the day, I would recommend shifting it earlier. So I don't know why the common practice is at nighttime, because there is enormous amounts of research talking about if we eat more in the morning part of the day and noon part of the day, if the majority of our calories come here, we are enjoying just two great benefits to list, I would say, is lower body weight and improved cardiovascular health. I mean, that's amazing to just move the timing of your calories earlier and gain better health outcomes in those areas. So that's my only modification to intermittent fasting I would make, and that would be more according to what the Blue Zones practice.
Excellent. Thanks, Jessy. So with that, we would like to ask you to participate in one more poll with us. I'm going to go ahead and launch it now and give the audience just a few minutes to, after seeing Jessy's excellent presentation, what kind of meal are you most eager to flex with plants? We saw some recipes for tacos and the pasta dish and the salad bowls. What are you excited to try after seeing this? I'll just leave this poll open a couple more seconds. Thanks everyone for your engagement and participation. It looks like we're almost at 80%. So I'll
that's great.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And let's share these results.
Oh, that is exciting. Tacos are one of my favorite too. It looks like tacos are winning with a pasta dish next, and then soup and sandwiches tied. That's great.
That's awesome. With that, I am going to go get some lunch after this, I think. We would like to thank you so much for participating and listening in. I want to remind you, we have some resources for you and some handouts. There will be a recording available you can see on our website. There's also some presentation slides, the overview handout, some research papers, a lot of the content Jessy spoke about. And I would also encourage you that if you have any questions, please send us an email at healthyu@peacehealth.org. And we will try to get as many questions answered as we can. We also have a monthly newsletter. You can sign up at peacehealth.org/healthyu/subscribe, and you'll find out about upcoming webinars, health news, and local events. And just a reminder, I will go ahead and say goodbye. You'll get a survey here. Please let us know what you think. The results do help us improve future webinars. And thank you so much for your participation.